The rain softly tapped against the windows of Lati Jardin, a serene restaurant in San Francisco. Its warm, dimly lit interior was a refuge for those seeking escape from the city's chaos. Elon Musk entered, worn and tired, the dark circles under, his eyes telling the tale of a week filled with stress. He pushed open the heavy wooden door, stepping into a brief moment of peace. "Just one night," he muttered, hoping for anonymity. The hostess barely glanced at him, indifferent to his appearance. Miguel Ramirez, a seasoned waiter, was in the kitchen, discussing the day's frustrations with his colleagues. "Did you see the guy at table 15? He looks lost," Sarah remarked. Miguel, preparing for another long night, sighed and readied himself to serve the seemingly unimpressive customer. Musk, distracted by the latest headlines about his companies, glanced at the menu without really seeing it. His mind raced with thoughts of Tesla's struggles, SpaceX's delays, and a fresh wave of criticism. When Miguel approached, he ordered whiskey, opting for the Macallan 18-year-old despite its hefty price. Miguel, frustrated by the customer's casual attitude, prepared to serve what he expected to be a forgettable evening. The restaurant filled with guests, and Miguel, handling his 6th table of the night, became increasingly irritable. He served Musk with sarcasm, making dismissive comments about his choices, like when Musk ordered foie gras, an upscale dish he insisted on despite his apparent lack of appreciation. Musk, finding the waiter's attitude oddly entertaining, let the comment slide. As the evening unfolded, Miguel's condescending remarks grew bolder. When Musk requested ketchup for his $120 steak, Miguel barely restrained his disdain. "You might prefer a fast food joint," he quipped, his voice dripping with mockery. Musk, instead of reacting with anger, simply smiled faintly, pulling out his phone to record. Miguel thought he had seen the last of it, assuming Musk would be too embarrassed to continue. By the time Miguel brought the bill, which totaled over $3,000, he had convinced himself that Musk would balk at the price. Instead, Musk handed over a black card, unique and weighty, as if nothing were out of the ordinary. Miguel was stunned. It wasn't until he walked away that he began to put the pieces together. Musk had been amused by the service all along, never once losing his cool. The tension in the restaurant had shifted. Other diners began to notice the strange dynamic between the waiter and the calm, seemingly ordinary customer. "There's something about him," one diner murmured, watching Musk's composed demeanor. As the evening wore on, Miguel's attitude continued, but Musk never reacted as expected. When Miguel mocked Musk's wine choice, Musk responded with curiosity, asking questions about the pairings. His cool, almost aloof behavior left Miguel unsettled. When the waiter delivered dessert, he mocked Musk once more, but Musk responded with a smile. "Please enlighten me," he said, enjoying the unusual exchange. Miguel, becoming more irritable, made snide comments about Musk's interest in the soufflé, suggesting it was too sophisticated for him, but Musk's calm, inquisitive responses only threw Miguel off balance. Meanwhile, the restaurant staff exchanged whispers. Sarah, watching from the bar, whispered urgently to Miguel, but he dismissed her, continuing his antagonistic behavior. The night wore on. The mood in the restaurant shifted further. Miguel began to wonder if he had underestimated his guest. The final bill was delivered, but Musk's casual demeanor only increased Miguel's frustration. With a sarcastic remark about how Musk's knowledge of food was just a front, he poured the wine with a practiced flourish. It wasn't until he returned to the bar, still buzzing with arrogance, that Sarah showed him the executive's phone. Miguel stopped dead in his tracks. His heart sank when he saw the photo. The customer at table 15 wasn't just any tech guy. He was Elon Musk. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. In his attempt to belittle the billionaire, Miguel had failed to recognize the most powerful man in the world. Miguel walked back to Musk's table, his arrogance gone. "I didn't know," he muttered. Musk looked up, his gaze amused but unbothered. "You should always treat people with respect," he said quietly, his voice carrying a weight that Miguel couldn't ignore. The rest of the staff, now aware of the situation, watched the exchange in stunned silence. The night had taken an unexpected turn. For Miguel, it would be a lesson in humility, a reminder that sometimes the most ordinary-looking customers might be far more important than they first appear. Miguel, still caught up in his disdain, sneered, "It's just that most people in your line of work think they can buy sophistication. But it's not about money, it's about knowing what's truly good, what's truly refined." Musk, still calm, raised an eyebrow. "And you think I don't know what's refined?" Miguel took a deep breath. "I'm just saying a lot of people try to impress by spending, but they never really appreciate the experience." Musk chuckled softly. "I think you're projecting." Miguel, slightly taken aback, hesitated for a moment before turning to leave, his mind still trying to reconcile his assumptions with what had just been said. He didn't notice the waiter from the table of tech executives quietly watching him. "Sarah," he whispered as he stepped closer to the bar. "That's Elon Musk. The guy at table 15 is actually him." Sarah, who had heard the whispers earlier, looked wide-eyed at the back of Miguel's head. "Wait, what? That's him?" Miguel's world suddenly tilted. His instinct was to flee, but he couldn't move. The realization hit him. He'd been disrespecting one of the wealthiest, most influential men in the world, and for no reason other than his own assumptions about what made someone worthy of respect. As the night wound to a close, Musk finished his meal, paid the bill with his infamous black card, and left a generous tip. But the biggest lesson, one that would stay with Miguel for years, wasn't in the tip. It was in the humbling realization that sometimes the people you least expect are the ones you should never underestimate. The night ended with the restaurant quieter, everyone still digesting the unexpected encounter. As Miguel finally left for the night, he took one last look at the restaurant and thought about how perception could be a dangerous thing, and how sometimes the most important lesson was to remain open, humble, and never judge a book by its cover. The next morning, Miguel woke up with a gnawing sense of unease. The events of the previous night played on a loop in his mind. He kept replaying the moment when he had dismissed Musk, arrogantly assuming he was just another wannabe tech mogul. And yet it turned out to be the Elon Musk, the billionaire whose name was synonymous with innovation, rockets, and a revolution in industries. Miguel had made assumptions based on appearances, and the cost of that misjudgment was hitting him hard. At work that evening, there was a palpable shift in the restaurant's atmosphere. Chef August was unusually quiet in the kitchen, and Thomas, the manager, was on edge as if he was still processing the encounter from the night before. As Miguel entered the restaurant, he could feel the weight of everyone's gaze on him. It wasn't an unfriendly stare, but more of an inquisitive one, as if the staff were waiting to hear about his side of the story. The first words out of Sarah's mouth were blunt. "You know who that was last night, right?" Miguel nodded, swallowing. His pride. "Yeah, I found out after. I didn't handle it well, did I?" Sarah gave him a sympathetic look, though there was a hint of amusement in her eyes. "Not exactly. But don't beat yourself up. I'm sure we've all misjudged someone before. It's just a little different when it's Elon Musk." Miguel could feel his cheeks flush with embarrassment, but he appreciated Sarah's attempt to soften the blow. "Yeah, it's not every day you insult someone who's changed the world." The rest of the evening passed uneventfully until late in the shift when Thomas, the manager, pulled Miguel aside. "I think you owe Mr. Musk an apology." Miguel sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Yeah, I was thinking about that, but I don't even know how to approach him." "You don't have to do it in person," Thomas said, his tone softer than usual. "Maybe a note or a simple message. You should at least acknowledge it." Miguel agreed. That evening, as he sat down at his apartment, he composed a brief but sincere apology, acknowledging the way he had misjudged Musk and his behavior. He sent it not expecting anything, just wanting to make amends. What he didn't anticipate was an immediate response. "Apology accepted," Musk wrote back simply. "We all make mistakes. It's how we learn that matters." Miguel felt a strange sense of relief wash over him. It wasn't the grandiose redemption he might have hoped for, but it was enough. Musk's words were a reminder of how little things, like humility and respect, could mean in the end. That small moment of grace from Musk felt like a gift, a lesson that would stick with him for much longer than a night of poor judgment. As the days passed, Miguel found himself reflecting more on his actions. He became more aware of how easy it was to judge people based on appearances, assumptions, or the narratives he had in his head. And the incident with Musk had helped him confront that part of himself, the part that had been so quick to judge without really knowing the full picture. Lati Jardin continued to serve as one of the city's most exclusive spots, but for Miguel, it had become a place where his perspective on life, humility, and respect had shifted. And although he would always carry the awkwardness of that night with him, it also became a crucial moment of growth, a reminder that no matter how successful you are, there's always room to learn and be better. Miguel smiled as he worked the next shift. The sting of the previous night was still there, but it no longer defined him. It was just one chapter in the long story of learning to understand people for who they really are, not what you think they might be. And in that realization, Miguel found peace. Miguel continued to work at Lati Jardin, his once confident swagger now tempered by the humbling lesson he'd learned. He didn't feel any less proud of the work he did, but he felt a new kind of awareness, a sense that success didn't come from arrogance, but from the willingness to listen and adapt. As the weeks went by, Miguel's relationship with the rest of the staff grew stronger. He worked harder to foster a sense of camaraderie with his colleagues, understanding that they were all part of the same team, each with their own strengths and flaws. Sarah, Thomas, and even Chef August noticed the change in him. He had gone from the guy who made snap judgments to someone who took the time to learn and grow. But the ripple effect of that fateful night wasn't just contained to the restaurant. Miguel started paying more attention to the world around him, consuming information with a more open mind. He had always been passionate about technology and the future, but now he found himself looking at the people driving those industries with more respect. Then, one quiet afternoon, a message popped up on his phone. It was from Elon Musk again. "I have a proposition for you." Miguel blinked, rereading the words to make sure he wasn't imagining things. He quickly tapped to open the message. "Would you be interested in working with one of my companies? It's not the kind of job you'd expect, but it could be an interesting challenge." Miguel sat back, stunned. He had no idea what Musk had in mind, but the mere fact that he had reached out was surreal. He knew that this wasn't just some casual offer. It was a unique opportunity, and one that he might never get again. After a few moments of hesitation, Miguel replied, "I'd love to hear more about it. What do you have in mind?" Over the next few weeks, they exchanged messages, and eventually, Musk invited Miguel to meet in person at one of his company's headquarters. It was a step into a world far beyond Lati Jardin's kitchen and the small restaurant world that Miguel had known. But as he prepared for the meeting, he realized something important. This wasn't just an opportunity to work with Musk. It was a chance to truly evolve, to take what he'd learned about humility, growth, and second chances, and apply it on a much larger stage. When the day of the meeting arrived, Miguel walked through the futuristic building, marveling at the sleek design and the intensity of innovation that radiated from every corner. Musk himself greeted him at the door with a handshake, a small but genuine smile, and the same no-nonsense attitude that had characterized their first meeting. "So, you're the guy who misjudged me last time?" Musk said, his tone light but carrying an edge of amusement. Miguel couldn't help but laugh. "Yeah, I was the one who thought you were just another rich guy in a fancy suit." "I'm sorry for that," he replied, shaking Musk's hand again. "But I've learned my lesson." Musk nodded, his gaze briefly piercing as if assessing Miguel in a way that only someone of his caliber could. "That's the first step," he said, and Miguel had the distinct sense that Musk was already evaluating him in a way that transcended the mistakes of the past. They spent the next few hours talking not just about business, but about values, leadership, and vision, topics that Miguel had never truly considered in such depth before. Musk spoke with intensity about his goals for the future, not just for his companies, but for humanity as a whole. There was no pretension, just a focus on what needed to be done and how the right people could help make it happen. By the end of the meeting, Musk made his offer clear. "I want you to join my team, Miguel. I think you've got potential, you've got grit, and you understand the value of learning. Plus, you're not afraid to admit when you're wrong. That's rare." Miguel wasn't sure what was happening. A part of him felt like he was stepping into a dream, into a world so far removed from his current reality that it felt almost surreal. But he knew deep down this was an opportunity he couldn't let slip through his fingers. "I accept," Miguel said without hesitation. From that moment on, Miguel's life took a radical turn. The next few months were a whirlwind of new experiences, long hours and challenging projects. But every day was a reminder of how far he'd come, from the arrogant waiter dismissing a tech mogul to the man now working alongside some of the brightest minds in the world. And through it all, Miguel never forgot the lesson that had started it all. Humility and growth were the foundations of any true success. With that mindset, he dove headfirst into his new role, ready to face the challenges that came with it, but also ready to keep learning. The world was bigger than he had ever imagined, and now it was his to explore. And maybe, just maybe, that mistake with Elon Musk had been the very thing that set him on the path to something greater. As Miguel settled into his new role, the challenges came at him fast and relentless. At first he felt overwhelmed. The team was filled with brilliant engineers, designers, and innovators, people who spoke in jargon he barely understood, who moved at a pace that seemed impossible. But every day he reminded himself of the lessons he'd learned at Lotte Jardin. Adapt, stay humble, and always be willing to learn. His first project was an ambitious one, working on a new initiative designed to make renewable energy more accessible to underserved communities. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't the kind of high-profile project that would get him media attention. But that was exactly why it intrigued him. Miguel had always been driven by the idea of creating lasting impact, and this was his chance to do something meaningful. He spent hours in meetings absorbing as much as he could. At first, it was difficult to follow the technical discussions, but over time, he became more comfortable, asking questions, offering ideas, and slowly earning the respect of his colleagues. He quickly learned that success in this world didn't come from having all the answers. It came from being able to ask the right questions, to connect the dots in ways others couldn't. His role evolved as his confidence grew. He started working on bigger projects, leading teams, and even managing some of the more complex negotiations with external partners. Each step forward was a reminder of how much he had changed, how far he had come from the young, cocky waiter who had once dismissed people like Musk. But the real test came when they hit a roadblock on the renewable energy project. The technology they were developing wasn't scaling as expected, and they were facing pushback from investors who were growing impatient. Miguel was asked to step in and lead the next phase of the project, an immense responsibility, but one he couldn't back away from. At first, he tried to tackle the problem head-on, applying the same approach that had worked in the restaurant world, thinking he could simply work harder, push the team harder, and make things happen through sheer force of will. But as the days went by, he realized that his old mindset wasn't enough. He couldn't solve this alone, and pushing his team harder wasn't the answer. So he did something different. He called a meeting with his team, but this time, instead of leading the conversation, he asked them to talk. He wanted to know what was really going wrong, to hear their thoughts and frustrations. He was genuinely curious, not just about the technology, but about the human side of the project, the way his team members were feeling, what they thought could be improved, what was holding them back. The result was a breakthrough. His team responded, opening up about the difficulties they were facing, the technical hurdles they hadn't been able to overcome, and the solutions they'd been too afraid to propose. It wasn't a single moment of genius that turned the project around. It was a collective effort, a shared commitment to figuring it out together. Miguel learned that leadership wasn't just about solving problems. It was about fostering an environment where people felt safe to share their ideas, to fail, and to learn from each other. That's when the magic happened. They reworked their strategy, brought in new ideas, and collaborated in a way that they hadn't before. Within a few months, the project started showing real promise. The technology began to scale, and investors began to take notice. The feeling of accomplishment wasn't just personal, it was collective. It was a reminder of how far they'd come, not just as individuals, but as a team. And Miguel had become the kind of leader who could draw out the best in everyone around him. Elon Musk, who had been watching the progress from the sidelines, gave him a rare compliment during one of their meetings. "You're not just managing projects now, Miguel. You're managing people. That's where the real value lies." That statement stuck with Miguel. As much as he had grown in his technical knowledge and his ability to drive projects forward, it was his ability to connect with others, to empower his team, that truly defined his success. A year later, as he stood on stage at a major industry conference, presenting the success of the Renewable Energy Initiative, Miguel reflected on how much his life had changed. From the small, chaotic kitchen of Lottie Jardin to the cutting-edge tech world, he had come full circle. His mistakes, his humbling experiences, had shaped him into someone capable of not just building innovative technologies, but of leading people with purpose and empathy. In the audience, Elon Musk gave him a nod of approval. It wasn't a flashy gesture, but it was all Miguel needed to see. He had earned his place, not just in the tech world, but as someone who understood the true value of humility, growth, and the importance of always being open to learning. The next few years were a whirlwind of accomplishments and challenges. Miguel's reputation continued to grow within the company, and soon he was overseeing multiple high-profile projects, each with its own set of complexities. His role had evolved from project manager to a more strategic position, shaping the company's direction, guiding its culture, and mentoring the next generation of leaders. But no matter how far he went, he never forgot where he came from. Every step of his journey was rooted in the lessons he learned early on, the importance of teamwork, the power of listening, and the value of staying humble. Even when he was in meetings with executives and industry giants, he never let his success blind him to the work that still needed to be done. One day, during a routine check-in with his team on a major new initiative, an advanced AI system designed to optimize energy consumption, Miguel found himself reflecting on how far the company had come. The technology they were developing could transform entire industries and address some of the most pressing issues facing the world, but it came with a new set of ethical questions. The potential of AI was limitless, but so was its ability to disrupt lives if misused. In one of the meetings, one of his engineers, a young woman named Maya, spoke up. "What happens if this system gets into the wrong hands? How do we ensure that it benefits society and not just the rich and powerful?" The question hit Miguel like a wave. He had thought about the technical risks, the scalability, the market potential, but he hadn't given enough thought to the broader societal implications. As much as he was focused on delivering breakthrough technologies, he realized he had a duty to think about the bigger picture, about the impact this work would have on the world. "We've got to do more than just innovate," Miguel said, his voice steady but reflective. "We need to ensure that these technologies are used responsibly, and that starts with us, here and now, making the right choices in how we design and deploy them." This conversation sparked a new initiative within the company, a focus on ethical technology and responsible innovation. Miguel worked closely with legal teams, ethicists, and other stakeholders to draft guidelines for the company's projects, ensuring they prioritize the well-being of society above all else. He knew that as they built cutting-edge technologies, they had to make decisions that aligned with their values, not just their bottom line. The next challenge came sooner than expected. The AI system they had been working on was ready for deployment, but a major competitor launched a similar product just weeks ahead of them, with a much more aggressive marketing campaign. The pressure was on. Investors were breathing down their necks, pushing for a quick rollout to maintain their market position. Miguel knew the easy decision would be to rush forward, release the product, and play catch-up with the competition. But he couldn't shake the feeling that they had a responsibility to get it right. This wasn't just about outpacing the competition. It was about doing it in a way that truly benefited people, not just profit margins. He called a meeting with the team, We're not in this to be first or to race anyone to the finish line. We're in this to do it right. If it takes a little longer, so be it. Our goal is to create something that lasts, not something that's just a quick win. It was a hard decision. They had to delay the launch, conduct further testing, and refine the system to ensure its security and ethical alignment. Many in the company were frustrated, but Miguel held his ground. In the end, the decision paid off. The system launched, not with a flashy marketing blitz, but with a message of responsibility and long-term vision. And while their competitors' product garnered initial attention, it was Miguel's company's solution that gained the trust of both consumers and regulators, proving that doing the right thing was often the most rewarding path. Years passed, and Miguel continued to lead the company to new heights. He was no longer the young man who had once been humbled by Elon Musk's quiet critique. He had become a leader who was known not just for his technical expertise, but for his unwavering commitment to doing things the right way, no matter how hard it was. And one day, as he walked through the bustling headquarters of the company, past teams collaborating on cutting-edge projects, Miguel realized that his journey had come full circle. He had gone from the disillusioned waiter with a dream to a seasoned leader in the tech world. He had built a career not by focusing on the shortcuts or the easy wins, but by staying true to the values that had guided him from the very beginning: humility, responsibility, and a relentless drive to make a difference. As he looked out of the office window, taking in the view of the city below, Miguel smiled. Years later, Miguel found himself standing in front of a crowd at a major technology conference, preparing to deliver a keynote address. The room was filled with engineers, innovators, investors, and young minds eager to hear from the person who had transformed not only his company, but an entire industry. It was a full-circle moment. The boy who once struggled to find his place in the world now stood as a respected leader in the tech world, shaping the future with every word he spoke. As he looked out over the sea of faces, Miguel thought about the long, winding path that had brought him here. There had been moments of doubt, times when he wondered if he was on the right track. But each challenge, each failure, each victory had been a piece of the puzzle. And now, with everything in place, he could see it more clearly than ever. When he took the stage, the audience fell silent, hanging on every word. Today, Miguel began, we find ourselves at the crossroads of innovation. We're facing a future full of possibilities: artificial intelligence, renewable energy, space exploration. Everything we've dreamed of is within reach. But with that comes responsibility. It's no longer just about what we can do. It's about what we should do. The words felt like an echo of his earlier conversations with his team, the ones that had shaped the company's values. And now he was sharing that message with the world, hoping to inspire others to think beyond the immediate rewards and focus on the long-term impact of their work. I've had the privilege of working with brilliant minds who have shown me that the greatest innovation doesn't come from technology alone, Miguel continued. It comes from the people who create it, the ones who ask the hard questions, the ones who aren't afraid to fail because they know they're doing it for something bigger than themselves. The crowd erupted in applause, but Miguel's focus remained unwavering. He wasn't here to bask in the glow of recognition. He was here to spark something deeper. Technology is powerful, he said, his voice steady. But we need to ensure that it's used to elevate humanity, to solve the problems we face, not create new ones. The decisions we make today will echo for generations to come. Let's be sure they're the right ones. As Miguel spoke, he saw many young engineers and innovators nodding in agreement, their eyes lighting up with a renewed sense of purpose. The change he had fought for, the values he had instilled in his company, were spreading beyond its walls. The industry was changing, and he could feel the tide shifting toward a future where success was measured not by profits alone, but by the positive impact on the world. The years that followed continued to build on the foundation Miguel had set. He remained at the helm, but he also became more of a mentor, stepping back when needed to allow the next generation to lead. He knew that true leadership wasn't about staying in the spotlight. It was about empowering others to take the reins and drive change themselves. Eventually, Miguel stepped down as CEO, handing over the leadership of the company to one of the young engineers he had mentored. The transition was seamless, and the company continued to thrive, its values still deeply embedded in every project and decision. Miguel didn't disappear from the industry, though. He became a sought-after speaker, a thought leader in the intersection of technology, ethics, and social responsibility. His work was far from over, and he knew the best way to create lasting change was to keep sharing his vision with others, to keep challenging the status quo, and to keep pushing for a future that was built on integrity, empathy, and innovation. In the years that followed, his legacy continued to grow, not just in the company he had built, but in the industry as a whole. More and more tech leaders embraced the idea of ethical technology, and his voice became a guiding force in shaping the next wave of innovation. As Miguel looked back on his life, he knew that the real success wasn't in the accolades or the millions of dollars in revenue. The real success was in the lives he had touched, the companies he had inspired, and the future he had helped to shape. A future where technology worked for humanity, not the other way around. And so, Miguel's story continued, not just as a tale of one man's rise to success, but as a beacon for anyone who believed that with the right values anything was possible. His journey wasn't just about reaching the top, it was about lifting others up along the way, leaving a legacy that would inspire the world for generations to come.